If your life feels like a loop, wake, work, sleep, repeat, this message is for you. Because you were never meant to be a machine in a human body. You were born to build, become, and break free. Let's talk about why most people forget and how to remember. Most people aren't born into a story. They're born into a system. Before a child has the chance to explore their inner world, before they even understand what makes them unique, the world begins shaping them. Not with love or vision, but with rules, expectations, and boundaries. Sit still, be quiet, memorize this, pass the test, get the grade. Don't ask questions. From the very beginning, we are trained not to think, but to obey. Not to express, but to conform. This isn't education, it's conditioning, a slow, quiet process of turning dreamers into workers, rebels into rule followers, creators into consumers. By the time we're teenagers, our fire has already started to flicker. That wild curiosity we once had, the urge to ask why, to break things open and rebuild them better, it gets buried beneath standardized curriculums and societal scripts. And by the time we hit adulthood, we're not searching for meaning anymore. We're searching for safety. We trade our dreams for a paycheck, our hunger for a routine, and our soul for something called stability. We take jobs that don't challenge us, but they pay the bills. We sit in meetings we don't believe in. We reply to emails that don't matter. We smile at people we can't stand. All so we can survive. Not live, survive. And here's the bitter truth. By 30, most people are already emotionally dead. They're walking, breathing, posting, talking, but inside, they're numb. They've become machines with memories, routines with names. They're not chasing anything anymore. They're just clocking in, clocking out, numbing the ache with distractions and telling themselves it's normal. But normal is often just a word we use to justify a life that doesn't feel like ours anymore. We've been told to be realistic our whole lives. Don't dream too big. Don't take that risk. Don't believe you can actually build something extraordinary. Be reasonable, be safe, be logical. But what no one tells you is that be realistic is often just fear in disguise. It's the battle cry of the defeated, the anthem of those who traded their calling for comfort. You weren't born to be a cog in a machine. You weren't born to blend in. You weren't born just to pay bills and die. You were born with a flame inside you, one that doesn't care about systems or scripts, one that wants to build, transform, and leave something behind that outlives you. And if no one has told you this in a while, let this be your reminder. A man can live decades as a ghost if no one reminds him he was born to be a flame. Don't let this world convince you that survival is enough. It's not. You are not here just to exist. You are here to ignite. In this world, from the moment you're old enough to walk, you're measured, not for who you are, but for how much you can produce. Productivity becomes identity. Achievement becomes worth. You are treated not like a living, breathing human being with dreams and soul, but like a resource, something to be extracted, optimized, and exploited. Your time, your attention, your energy, everything is monetized. The world doesn't ask if you're happy. It asks if you're useful. And slowly, you start to see yourself that way too. You start to believe that your only value lies in how much you can do, how much you can earn, how well you can perform. But deep down, your soul knows better. That's why you feel restless, even when life looks good on paper. That's why your heart aches when you sit in silence. That's why no promotion, no raise, no new gadget ever really satisfies. Because you weren't built to be a machine. You weren't built to chase numbers. You were built to create, to express, to transform your pain into power, your story into legacy, your vision into something real. That feeling you get, the frustration, the boredom, the invisible weight pressing down on your chest, that's not weakness. That's your fire trying to rise. That's your soul rebelling against the cage. You were never meant to be a tool in someone else's plan. You were meant to be the architect of your own. Your blood carries generations of survival, strength, and rebellion. Your heart was wired for impact, not to blend into the background, but to make a dent in the world. You are not a line item on a spreadsheet. You are not a title or a role. You are not an algorithm to be optimized. You are a force. And the moment you stop seeing yourself as one, the world wins. That's the real tragedy. Not that we grow old, but that we grow small. That we let our brilliance be buried beneath expectations. That we choose the illusion of security over the reality of significance. But the truth is, the system doesn't want you awake, because a soul on fire cannot be controlled. And a man who knows his power is dangerous to every machine built to silence him. So if you've been feeling like something's wrong, you're right, something is wrong. But it's not you. It's the lie you've been told, that your worth is in what you produce, that your identity is in your output. It's not. You are not a resource. You are not a statistic. You are not a cog. You are a force. And the world has no idea what's coming when you finally remember that. Comfort is seductive. It whispers in your ear that you've done enough, that you've earned rest, that there's no need to push anymore. It wraps around you like a soft blanket, not to protect you, but to paralyze you. It doesn't just dull your pain, it dulls your purpose. And the worst part is, it never shows up as the enemy. It disguises itself as self-care, as peace, as taking a break. But slowly, quietly, it begins to drain the hunger from your soul. You stop striving, you stop growing, you stop becoming, and you convince yourself that stillness is satisfaction, when in reality, you're just stuck. People don't wake up one day and say, I want to waste my life. Number. What happens is far more subtle. One day they hit snooze instead of rising. One day they decide it's okay to stop dreaming quite so big. One day they say, I'll start tomorrow. And then days become months, months become years, and eventually the version of themselves they could have become fades into a ghost of what might have been. That's what comfort does. It numbs you, and numbing feels good until you realize it's also killing you. The truth is, we were not built to be comfortable. We were built to struggle, to stretch, to sweat for something bigger than ourselves. Human beings thrive in resistance. Muscles grow from stress. Minds expand from pressure. Souls awaken in fire. Yet we've built a society obsessed with ease. Everything is designed to be faster, simpler, more convenient. And in the process, we've lost our edge. We've become soft, spiritually soft, mentally soft, visionless. But here's the hard truth. Nothing great is ever born from comfort. Not character, not legacy, not transformation. The people you admire, the warriors, the leaders, the builders, they didn't get there by seeking what was easy. They ran toward the hard things. They chose discipline over desire. They chose discomfort over distraction, because they understood something most people forget, that comfort is the slowest form of death. And if you're feeling stuck right now, like something inside you is rotting in silence, maybe it's not depression. Maybe it's not burnout. Maybe it's too much ease. Maybe your soul is starving not for rest, but for a challenge, for a mountain to climb, for a fire to walk through. So the next time comfort calls your name, ask yourself, is this peace or is this paralysis? Am I recovering or am I hiding? Is this rest or is this retreat? Because your destiny is not found in what feels good. It's found in what makes you grow. Pain isn't always punishment. It's not always a sign that something is broken. Sometimes pain is a message, a siren call from the soul, not telling you to stop, but begging you to listen. We live in a world that treats pain like a disease. If you feel it, numb it. If it hurts, distract yourself. Scroll it away, drink it away, laugh it off. But pain, when honored, is one of the most intelligent signals you will ever receive. It's how your spirit whispers that you're off course, that you're betraying yourself, that the life you're living is too small for the person you were born to be. You're not broken because you feel lost. You're not weak because you feel empty. You're awake. Awake enough to sense that this routine, this rhythm, this structure of your days, it's not feeding you. And the ache inside your chest, that's not confusion. That's your true self shaking the bars of a cage you've been taught to call normal. Because what we call normal today is often just silent suffering with a smile on top. You see it all around you. People walking around with lives that look fine on the outside but feel hollow on the inside. They have careers, homes, families, and yet something is missing. And instead of digging deeper, they blame themselves. Maybe I'm ungrateful. Maybe I'm just hard to please. But no, the truth is simpler and harder. You're not tired of life. You're tired of this life. The one that keeps you disconnected from your passion. The one that trades your spirit for stability. The one that keeps you safe but never makes you come alive. We are taught to silence pain. But pain is a compass. It doesn't show up to punish you. It shows up to redirect you. When your body hurts, it asks for healing. When your soul hurts, it asks for truth. And truth is often buried beneath the layers you've built to survive. The job you took for approval. The role you play to stay liked. The silence you keep so you don't rock the boat. But underneath all of that is a voice. And it's getting louder. That voice says, this isn't who you are. And this isn't why you're here. You don't need to fix the pain. You need to face it. You need to ask it what it wants to teach you. Because pain, when embraced, becomes fuel. It becomes clarity. It becomes transformation. Some of the strongest people you'll ever meet aren't those who avoided pain. They're the ones who used it, who turned it into art, into action, into awakening. So stop numbing, stop running, sit with the pain. Let it speak, because if you dare to listen, it will show you exactly where your life begins to change. There comes a moment in every life where the mirror stops being silent. You look into it, not just to see your reflection, but to meet your potential. And you don't like what's looking back. Not because you're a failure, but because you know deep down you've been holding back. You've been playing small. You've been dimming your fire to fit into places that were never meant to hold your greatness. You were not born for half-hearted living. You were born to burn bright, to build something unforgettable, to set your world on fire with purpose. And the only way you get there is by reclaiming what you gave away. At some point, you stopped asking what you truly wanted. You stopped chasing what made your soul vibrate. Maybe life broke your trust. Maybe people betrayed you. Maybe you tried and failed, and the world laughed, so you shrunk. You learned to survive instead of lead. You traded your fire for approval, your ambition for predictability, your boldness for silence. And now here you are, waking up in a life that feels borrowed. A life that was designed not by your heart, but by your fears. But listen carefully. The fire is not gone. It never left. It's just buried under the rubble of self-doubt and distraction, and it's waiting patiently, powerfully, for you to remember who you were before the world told you who to be. That child who dreamed big, that teen who had vision, that person who once believed in the impossible. That version of you still exists, and it's angry you've abandoned it. You don't need more motivation. You need a moment of truth, a decision, a line drawn in the sand where you say, I will no longer betray myself to fit into a world that fears authenticity. The fire returns when you stop asking for permission and start moving with conviction. It returns when you write the book, start the business, change your body, leave the toxic situation, speak the truth you've been swallowing. It returns when you stop existing and start building. And don't expect the world to celebrate your decision, not at first. People will mock what they don't understand. They will call your fire too much, too intense, too unrealistic. But they said the same thing to every revolutionary who came before you. You are not here to be understood. You're here to become undeniable. So pick up the pieces, dust off the vision, forgive yourself for all the time you've spent sleeping, and then rise, not quietly, not cautiously, but with the full force of someone who remembers why they were born in the first place, because the fire never dies. But you do if you don't use it. Most people don't wake up and live. They wake up and repeat, not because they're lazy, not because they're broken, but because they've been trained to live according to instructions they didn't write. From childhood, we're handed a script. It's not handed gently either. It's drilled into us. Sit down. Be good. Color inside the lines. Don't talk back. Get the right answers. Make us proud. And before we ever get the chance to ask ourselves who we are, we're already becoming who they told us to be. By the time we're adults, we're not making choices. We're following instructions we memorized years ago. These instructions become invisible walls around our potential. You don't see them. You just feel the limitations. You start to say things like, "That's just how I am. People like me don't do that. I can't. It's too late." But where did those beliefs come from? Who put them in you? Whose voice is still playing in your head every time you try to rise? Because if you listen closely, you'll realize most of your thoughts aren't even yours. They're echoes of teachers, parents, media, culture, voices that taught you how to survive but never how to live. So you grow up thinking you're making decisions, when really you're just remembering the rules. You work the job you were told was respectable. You suppress the dreams that were called unrealistic. You wear masks that were approved by the crowd. And the tragedy is, you're doing everything right. You're following the checklist, but it doesn't feel like you. It feels like performance, like you're walking someone else's path in someone else's shoes, hoping it will eventually feel like home, but it never does. This is why so many people feel empty, because they're not connected to their truth. They're not living from within. They're living by default. They're going through the motions of a life they never consciously chose. And the deeper tragedy, they're good at it. So good, in fact, that they can convince the whole world they're fine. But inside, their soul is whispering, "There's more." The first step to reclaiming your life is asking the forbidden question, whose instructions am I still following? And what would happen if I stopped? That's where real living begins, when you stop seeking permission, when you stop following blueprints built by fear, when you realize that the most dangerous thing you can do is continue walking a path that isn't yours just because it's familiar. You weren't put here to repeat a program. You were put here to write a new one, to burn the old rules, to design a life that doesn't just impress others, but awakens you. Because freedom doesn't begin with rebellion. It begins with the courage to ask, who wrote this script? And why the hell am I still following it? Look around. Look close. The world is full of people walking around like they're alive, but they're not. They're breathing, yes. Smiling, yes. Posting stories, making plans, attending meetings. But inside, something's missing. Something's gone quiet. You can see it in their eyes if you're paying attention. This vacant look, like a fire once burned there, but someone poured water on it years ago. And the saddest part? Most of them don't even realize it, because they've learned to function without their dream. They've become so good at pretending to be fine that they've forgotten what it feels like to be on fire. These are the half-dead dreamers, the ones who once believed in something greater, something more. They had visions of impact, of greatness, of building something that mattered. But then life happened. They shared their dream with the wrong people. People who laughed, who mocked, who told them to be realistic. They failed once and assumed they were never meant to try again. They started comparing themselves to others and slowly convinced themselves they weren't enough. So they buried the dream, not because it wasn't possible, but because the world made it painful to keep alive. What they didn't realize is that unexpressed dreams become diseases. The longer you suppress that vision inside of you, the heavier life becomes. You start to feel tired all the time. You lose motivation. You stop caring. You feel like something's off, like something's missing, but you can't explain what. That's not depression. That's dormancy. That's the pain of potential that was never given breath. That's the death of what could have been. But here's the raw truth. Your dream never died. You just stopped visiting it. You left it alone in a dark corner of your mind, thinking it would fade. But real dreams don't die quietly. They whisper. They haunt. They show up in your sleepless nights and your moments of boredom. They echo through your heart when you hear someone else doing what you know you were meant to do. And the ache you feel when you watch others live boldly, that's not jealousy. That's your soul asking, why not me? It's not too late. I don't care how old you are, how far you've drifted, how much time you think you've wasted. Your dream is not dead. It's just waiting for you to come back, waiting for you to believe again, waiting for you to stop asking for permission and start owning your destiny. This world doesn't need more empty success stories. It needs awakened souls. People who remember what they came here to do and have the courage to resurrect the dream everyone told them to bury. So dig it up, clean off the dust, look it in the eye, and then chase it like your life depends on it. Because it does. You might think your fire is gone, that somewhere along the way, life smothered it, and now you're just a colder, quieter version of who you used to be. But let me tell you something real, something undeniable. The fire never dies. It doesn't vanish. It just gets buried. Buried under disappointment, under fear, under years of trying to be realistic, practical, mature. But deep beneath all of that, beneath the pain, beneath the silence, beneath the masks, the flame is still there, flickering, waiting. It's not dead. You just stopped feeding it. You covered it up with busyness, with distraction, with scrolling, with endless conversations about nothing. You traded your sacred inner fire for surface-level validation, for being liked, for being safe, for being normal. But the flame inside you wasn't made to stay small. It was made to burn through the lies, cut through the noise, and light up everything you touch. And the reason you feel so disconnected, so numb, so lost, is because you've spent years covering your fire instead of following it. Every time you said yes when you meant no, the flame dimmed. Every time you hid your truth to keep the peace, the flame dimmed. Every time you chose comfort over challenge, validation over vision, silence over speaking your soul, the flame dimmed. But it didn't die. You can still feel it, can't you? That restlessness, that voice in your gut that says, there's more than this. That sudden pull when you hear a story of someone who broke free. That quiet rage when you catch a glimpse of the person you could be if you stop playing small. That's the fire. It never left you. You just stopped trusting it. Here's the truth no one tells you. Greatness doesn't come from adding more to your life. It comes from removing everything that buried your flame in the first place. All the noise, all the pretending, all the excuses. Peel it all away, and the fire is right there. Unapologetic, unfiltered, ready. You don't need to go find your passion. You are your passion. You don't need to search for your power. You've always had it. You don't need to become someone new. You need to remember who you were before the world convinced you to forget. So dig through the pain, dig through the comfort, dig through the years of playing it safe. And when you find that fire, don't admire it. Don't talk about it. Don't wish you had it again. Feed it, fan it, follow it. And then burn everything that told you to be anything less. When a person doesn't know what they're living for, they will chase anything that helps them forget that fact. They'll reach for pleasure, not because they're happy, but because they're hollow. Without a purpose pulling you forward, pleasure becomes the only escape from the weight of your own potential. You scroll endlessly, not because you're entertained, but because it's easier than facing the silence. You eat when you're not hungry. You check notifications for a hit of meaning. You laugh at jokes that aren't funny and hang around people who drain you, all to avoid confronting the truth. You don't know why you're here. Purpose is more than passion. It's more than ambition. It's your anchor. Without it, the winds of distraction, noise, and cheap dopamine will carry you away. You'll become a slave to your impulses, constantly reaching for the next little hit of happiness, knowing it won't last, but needing it anyway. You start to live for weekends, for likes, for the next delivery, for the next show, the next scroll. But all of it fades. And when it fades, it leaves behind something even worse than emptiness. It leaves shame. Shame that you keep numbing instead of building. Shame that you're living in a loop. Shame that you know there's more inside you, and yet you keep ignoring it. The human soul was not built for endless consumption. It was built for creation. You were designed to build something that outlives you, to take what you feel and know and dream and turn it into something real. That's where fulfillment lives. Not in the easy life, not in the indulgent life, but in the meaningful one. And meaning doesn't come wrapped in convenience. It comes through struggle, through service, through becoming someone who can bear the weight of real responsibility. Without purpose, life feels heavy. Not because it's hard, but because it's empty. And no amount of temporary pleasure will fill a void that was meant to be occupied by vision. You don't need another fix. You need a mission, a reason to rise, a reason to suffer, a reason to sacrifice. Because when you touch something meaningful, something bigger than yourself, all the fake pleasure loses its grip. You don't need to escape anymore, because you finally have something worth staying for. And you don't find that mission in a book or a video or a post. You find it when you get honest, brutally honest, about the kind of life you've been living. When you say, "This isn't enough, I was made for more." And then you go out, not to chase comfort, but to earn clarity through action. Because purpose is not something you wait for. Purpose is something you build. With your hands, your habits, and your hell. You don't get to stay here forever. One day, whether you're ready or not, the clock runs out, the lights dim, the world moves on. And the question won't be how many followers you had, how busy your calendar looked, or how productive you were. The only question that matters is this: did you build something that outlives you? Because legacy isn't some grand idea reserved for kings, presidents, or billionaires. It's built quietly, daily, in the choices you make when no one's watching. It's carved into the lives you touch, the pain you transform, the courage you show when it would have been easier to quit. And here's the truth: you're always building something. The question is what? Are you building a life of excuses, distractions, and regrets? Or are you building a structure strong enough to hold meaning, weight, and impact? This world is full of empty noise. It doesn't need more trends. It doesn't need more polished performances. What it needs is people who remember they're not just here to exist. They're here to create echoes, to do something so real, so true, so soul-shaking that long after they're gone, the vibration remains. You don't need millions. You don't need approval. You need intent. The intention to live in a way that matters, to rise from your wounds and turn them into wisdom, to take your scars and sculpt them into strength, to build a life that leaves behind proof, not that you were perfect, but that you were present, that you didn't just breathe, you built. Build the body that becomes a temple for discipline. Build the mind that doesn't collapse in crisis. Build the soul that can hold grief and still give. Build the story that your future self looks back on and says, "We did it. We didn't fold. We became." And remember, your legacy isn't what you leave when you die. It's what you give while you're still here. Your consistency, your resilience, your fire. That's what gets passed on. That's what ripples through generations. So start now. Start where you are. Take whatever's broken, heavy, half-finished, and start shaping it. Because the world will forget what you owned, but it won't forget what you built. If you've made it this far, then something in you refuses to stay asleep. Something in you is still alive, even if the world tried to bury it. You are not here by accident. You didn't stumble into this life to coast through comfort, check boxes, and fade out quietly. You were not born to die unused. There is something in you the world has never seen before, and will never see again if you stay silent. You are not a product. You are not a prisoner. You are not just a role to play or a number to track. You are a living force of nature, and it's time you acted like it. This is not the end of a video. This is the start of your rebellion. Rebel against the version of you that played small. Rebel against the system that convinced you to shrink. Rebel against the life that numbs instead of ignites. Because you were born to build, to burn, to become. And if no one has ever told you this before, I will. You are not here to be normal. You are here to be unforgettable.